joining me now is Ken Schnacky, team president and GM for the Columbus Clippers, a AAA affiliate to the Cleveland Guardians. Ken, thank you for taking the time to talk to me on One and Done Radio.
Great. Nice to be on with you today. Thanks, Ryan.
Team president and GM, how did you get to this role?
This is my 47th year, so let's just say I've gone through the school of hard knocks, and everything has worked out quite nicely over time.
Wow, 47 years. You've probably seen a lot within the organization.
We have seen a lot, and in a lot of organizations. We had 2 years with the Pittsburgh Pirates, 28 years with the New York Yankees, 2 years with the Washington Nationals, and we're now in our 15th year with Cleveland.
What's it like going through all those different transitions? What goes into that?
Well, back then, you up until the time Major League Baseball took minor league baseball over after coming out of COVID, you were intertwined with your major league affiliate for 2 or 4 year periods. So every 2 or 4 years, you could either resign with them, or if you didn't like your dance partner, as I said, you could go out and try to find a new one. So, the key then was not to be the last guy and the last girl on the dance floor that were going to get paired up no matter what. So, and that gave us some very odd pairings that was very uncomfortable to Major League Baseball. And that's part of the reason we went through some of the turmoil that we did.
Now, before we got started, you did mention this hat, which again, thank you guys for sending my way. It's a fantastic looking hat. And this is one of your alternate options that you guys wear, correct?
It is. And, the one thing we've been true to the Columbus Clippers theme. We've modernized our logo and we've done some tweaks to it. We added Los Veleros, which is the Copa component, but we have really not changed our logo. I've just found over time that logo is popular with both kids and adults. I've seen some that maybe were a little too adult oriented, and I've seen quite a few lately that maybe are a little too kidsy oriented, that mom and dad don't want to wear that cap. So trying to get into that mix and find the thing that's a hit with all the fans of all ages. I'm very proud of what we've done.
Now, you guys play at Huntington Park, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
2009.
2009. Wow. Now, I obviously I haven't been, but I've seen like photos and the backdrop of it. I think it's looks like a great experience for those that attend a game there. What's it like? What's it like for fans that go to a game there?
It is. It's very unique. The theme when we built the ballpark was we are building an outdoor park where baseball is played. It's very open. I'm kind of an old school baseball guy, so the foundation of some of this with the architects were some of the elements from the great ballparks around the country. So we have our green monster, which is 22 feet instead of 37 feet down the right field line. You can stand underneath our scoreboard in right center field and actually look into the ballpark. That's like San Francisco. The backdrop actually raises and lowers, so when the team's out of the road, we'll lower that backdrop so you have beautiful views into the ballpark and the city. And the only other entity that does that is Staten Island for the New York skyline. We've got some grass area for sitting. Then we've got our left field building, which is modeled after Camden Yards. And on top of that third-story building, we've got a set of bleachers sitting on the rooftops at Wrigley Field. So we were able to capture some of the iconic parks around the country and make that part of what becomes Huntington Park.
That is really cool. What went into I know you said you took like a lot of different things to different parks. Is like a department that handles that, like a whole team? Did you guys all come together to come up with the design? Like what goes into that?
There were about 4 or 5 of us, the architects, 360 at that time, Nationwide Realty Investors that oversaw the budget, and then myself. So, we huddled every day. We tried to do things that were outside the box. I refused to let them look at all the drawings of things they had done before. I kept saying, we are building the next version of Camden Yards. We're not going to build another new Comiskey Park, which is the way the industry changed at the major league level.
What's it like working with the Guardians?
Guardians are great. They're great people to work with. I've really enjoyed it. I'm a Cleveland kid, And I'm even though I'm old, I'm of that age. They've never won a World Series in my lifetime. We came awfully close in 2016. The fans love it because it's only 2 hours up the road, and they can follow the players back and forth. So it's really worked out well, I think, for both organizations. It's allowed Cleveland to capture a larger share of our market, which really went back to the Cincinnati Reds, all the way back to the Reds' heydays of the Big Red Machine. So I think it's been good for both of us.
Awesome. Now, when a player is called up, what role do you guys have? Because obviously with AAA, you guys are right below Major League Baseball. What's that process like for when players get called up, brought down? What role do you guys play in that?
Well, we don't really play a large role. I mean, we get up in the morning. I always say our day starts when we know that Cleveland has 26 healthy players. And if they do not, then I won't say we're on pins and needles, but we're in a holding stage until, you know, Chris Antonetti or Mike Chernoff or James Harris will get a hold of our manager, Andy Tracy, and say, well, this is who we want. And then, obviously our charge is to get that person wherever the rest of the team is as soon as possible. And then sometimes there'll be some discussions about who should we get from the AA team, which is Akron. And you try to fill in that void. And when you do that, it's not always the obvious choice because sometimes your manager at AAA may have a player on the bench that he'd like to see get a little more playing time. But if you go for the prospect at the AA level and bring him in, then that player moves to the front of the line and he has to play every day. So there are some thoughts that go into how you move players up and how you try to take care of your roster. And at all times, we're trying to make sure that we've got protection for the major league team.
Who are some prospects that people should be on the lookout for?
Well, right now, I mean, we've got Bo Naylor, who obviously everyone is talking about. Josh Naylor's younger brother, Brian Rocchio, has been up and down a couple times. He's back down now. Richie Palacios is still manning the outfield for us. Cleveland has taken a lot of our starting pitchers. Gavin Williams is a young prospect that joined us a couple weeks ago, and he's off to a good start. So um, the great thing about Cleveland is we've got some depth in the system. They really focus on young pitching. They have a very good reputation for developing pitchers. So, right now we're doing something crazy in AAA because of Major League Baseball. We're having a split season, which I'm not really in favor of. But so they've got the 20 of us on the East Coast that comprise the International League, and the first half will end on June 25th, and then you'll start a second half. So out of the 20 teams, we're right now sixth place, and we're not that far behind, but with a couple weeks to go, trying to climb over six teams is kind of hard. So, when you get to that, I was like not in favor of a split season, but we'll be able to regroup and maybe have a better run in the second half.
Is there a team that I know minor league baseball is a little tough to sometimes maybe develop like a rivalry because so much changes and players change and all that. Is there a team though that when they come to town, fans get a little more excited for?
Well, it's Louisville who's in here now because it's the Reds.
Hmm.
The Reds and the Guardians are the two Ohio teams. Columbus sits right smack in the middle of the state. So there really is some interest. There was a lot of interest for Ellie De La Cruz, and then the Reds just called him up today. So he was supposed to play here tonight in Columbus, and now he is on his way. I'm not disappointed because he really hurt us the six games we played down in Louisville earlier. So that's okay by me.
It's always nice like whew,
Yeah.
wiping your forehead right there. Now, giving back to the community is a big thing for me, and I'm sure it is for Columbus. What's some things that you guys do to give back to the community?
We have Clippers charities that sponsor a lot of activities. We're one of the big sponsors for the Miracle League of Dublin, which is an artificial turf field for severely handicapped kids. And they have the buddy system. So all the buddies are sponsored by the Clippers, and we partake with them. In fact, I was there to open their season a couple weeks ago, and we'll have a night for all the kids down at the ballpark. And then at the end, when our season ends, we'll send our PA announcer and our promo team up there with the hot dog race, and we'll kind of make it a Clippers event on their little field. And the kids get a lot of joy out of that. I mean, to see the looks on their faces is just phenomenal. We do a litter league program in Columbus with Huntington Bank and the city of Columbus collect trash, and we compete against the city of Toledo and other cities, and so we have trash pickups, and once a month we honor all the teams, all the volunteers that are picking up trash. We're doing a library reading program with Safe Light. We do some things with the Ronald McDonald House and then the Buckeye Ranch for children that are troubled and need some supervision is another big entity that we are behind.
What's it like being the most popular? I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan. Don't know if that's going to change this interview or not. What's it like being the most popular team in Columbus?
We're not the most popular team in Columbus.
I know.
I call those guys up in the horseshoe the 800-pound gorilla. So they are, and we have a wonderful relationship with them and with Gene Smith, their AD, and we have about half of our interns are from the Ohio State University Sports Management Program. Very good relationship, and for the most part, you've got Ohio State, and then you've got the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Columbus Crew and the Columbus Clippers. Now I hear we're having the Columbus Fury, which is professional volleyball that's going to start this fall. So we all try to kind of work together. We do some things together for the community, but with our athletes in our different seasons, we don't intermingle maybe as much as we'd like to.
Okay. I was just poking a little fun with the
No,
Wolverines and stuff. Yeah. Wait. So professional volleyball is that first year for the professional volleyball or first year
yeah,
in the city of Columbus?
I think it's the first year for professional volleyball. We
Wow.
had we had their guy out to throw out a first pitch. Our team's called, I believe, the Columbus Fury, and they'll play at Nationwide Arena. So you'll have to Google it. I can't tell you anymore.
I will have to Google that. Now, one question I do like asking all these minor league teams I talk to is obviously Major League Baseball gets so much flack and so much like notoriety, but minor league baseball does play, in my opinion, a big role for Major League Baseball. What do you think separates minor league baseball from the majors?
Minor league baseball is more casual. It's more affordable. It's more grassroots baseball, and I think the intimacy of it hopefully teaches young fans to love the game. Um, you can bring your family out here less than you can go to a movie, let alone all the other sports.
Yeah.
And I think it helps develop a person's love of the game of baseball. And, lately we've been kind of the test track, if you will, for some of the major league items: the pitch clock, the widened bases, uh, the three limit pickoff attempts. Now we've got the ABS in our ballparks, and to be honest, all of them are pretty good for the game. And the one thing I like doing away with the shift, because when the game of baseball was created back in the 1860s, two guys were on one side of second, two guys were on the other side of second. What that showed you was the athleticism of a guy like Ozzie Smith, where some of the bigger, slower shortstops that didn't have his range would actually have to cheat a little bit, knowing where the pitch is, so they could try to cover that gap. So I like the fact, because with the shift and three or four guys on one side of the infield, analytics was playing too much a part of the game. And that's really not the way the game was created. So I'm glad to see that we're trying to force some of this back. And, the widened bases from 15 to 18 inches means the distance from first to second is shortened by 4.5 inches. And you have seen more stolen bases. I mean, you're starting to see a little more athleticism that the game didn't have 2 or 3 years ago. And I think that's a good thing.
Now let's have some fun. I like asking some fun questions. But another question I do like asking all the teams I've talked to is, besides your affiliates, what minor league logo do you enjoy? Do you like is it one of your favorites?
What's your second question?
Oh, you
I,
don't have
I don't really know. I mean, there's some neat ones. I think Las Vegas did a nice job when they went from the 51s to the Aviators. Um, Trying to think in our league. I mean, the Toledo Mud Hens, theirs is a little legendary
yeah.
because of the association with MASH. Charlotte has done a nice job at the capital city with their logo. So there are some neat ones. I really haven't tuned into those probably as much as you have,
Sure.
but I sure like that Clippers logo that's on your head.
It's a good looking logo. And I show my dad too because personally I had no idea what like the clipper meant until I started this journey. And then I told him, he goes, "Oh yeah." I just told him like, "Hey, I actually I received a hat from the Columbus Clipper." He goes, "Oh, so is the ship on the hat?" I go, "Yeah." I didn't know. I didn't know it was a known thing. But
Columbus Clippers, Christopher Columbus, the
yeah.
largest city name for Columbus, the three ships that sailed over here and landed. That's where the nuance of the hat comes from.
Now, you've obviously, just like you said, you've seen a lot of baseball throughout your time. Which, who is one former player that you saw that you were happy that you saw, that you're glad you saw in person, and then one player that you wish you could have seen?
Well, I mean, in the Yankee days, there's a slow start because of George Steinbrenner's per chant for free agents. Don Mattingly was the first guy that cracked that mold. And then in the 90s, when we had Derek Jeter and Bernie Williams and Jorge Posada, Mariano Rivera, who was a starting pitcher for us, and Andy Pettit, those were pretty special. And then we go to Cleveland, and we've got Corey Kluber and Jason Kipnis and Carlos Santana and Michael Brantley. I mean, those are some really great players. Now, we don't have the Mike Trouts of the world that are out on the West Coast, and you've missed some of those guys. But a lot of guys have come through Columbus and other organizations that you've seen. I mean, going way back, Dale Murphy was a catcher at first with the Braves. And then he ends up being an all-star center fielder. So you've seen some neat things. We saw Wade Boggs with Pawtucket, that was actually struggling, and his old manager would take him out and hit him 50 ground balls a day. He says, "I'm going to make a third baseman out of him yet." Well, not only did he make him a third baseman, he made him a Hall of Famer. So there have been
Mhm.
some neat people that we've seen, and obviously ones we have not.
And last question. If you could add, and you already touched on some of the rule changes that baseball has implemented. If you could add a rule or remove a rule, what rule would you either want to add or remove?
I really haven't given that a lot of thought. Um, you've got people that are analyzing all this stuff and have far more access to analytics than I do. I give them a lot of credit for increasing the pace of the game, and it was getting too long. The players were taking too much time. Some of them are struggling with it. I think I saw the other day Verlander was upset because the time clock went out and he didn't get all his warm up pitches in.
Yeah.
And then I heard the bizarre situation where Cody Bellinger went back to LA and the standing ovation was so intense.
Yeah.
He stood there and he got a called strike on him. So there's some unintended consequences with some of these rules.
Yeah.
I like the relief pitchers having to finish an inning or pitch to three hitters. Some of the chess pieces that people would overplay, if you will, um, were more in their minds than they really meant on the field. And one good thing, I think, is the fact that everybody has a designated hitter.
Yeah.
You hate watching pitchers hit, and you hate even watching pitchers bunt because their hands out there on the bat and something could happen. And it extends the lives of some of these aging superstars and gives them a few more years where the fans get to see them. I think that's really neat for the fans.
I agree, and I think touching on the point of the designated hitter, like in the pitcher, I think that is one thing that I am glad they did add, as far as everyone having DH. And
I like the runner on second in extra innings. Now,
yeah,
at our level, it really made sense because what would happen infrequently here if we play 13, 14, 15 innings, we have no bullpen.
yeah,
And then we're actually going into the clubhouse, calling Cleveland at midnight. We need bullpen help the next day. Well, Cleveland's going through their repertoire, seeing how Akron's set up, and they end up sending us a Class A pitcher that really shouldn't be in AAA. So, and it changes the nuance of the game in extra innings, even at the major league level. When no one's on base, everyone's trying to hit the walk-off home run. But now, with everyone starting with a runner on second base, it's kind of like the way you start batting practice every day: get them on, get them over, get them in. So it changes the philosophy and actually brings more baseball, basic baseball, into an overtime game. And every other sport has come up with something to do to make overtime a little shorter and a little more interesting.
Yep. And all the rule changes you mentioned too has increased viewership of baseball. Just the numbers are behind it. More people are watching, more people are going to the games because it is takes less time. There's more opportunities to score and everything.
Well, we're going with the ABS system Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in AAA, and the challenge system Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On the challenge system, the home plate umpire is actually making the call, and each team has three challenges. The challenges can only come from the pitcher, the catcher, or the hitter. Managers and other personnel cannot challenge. If you make a challenge and you're right, you maintain your challenge. If not, you lose it. A couple weeks ago, we're playing Iowa in the eighth inning with about 8,000 people in the stadium, and they used their last challenge and they lose. And our crowd went crazy. I mean, to see it up on the video board, the ABS, and see the ball coming in slow motion, and it's a strike. It's not a ball. They lose their challenge. Yeah, fans are enjoying some of these things.
How quick is the ABS challenge?
It's pretty quick. I got
Really?
to give them credit. There's not a real big delay. I mean, you're not sitting there waiting and waiting for things to happen. It's pretty instantaneous.
Wow. Now, can for those that don't know where to find you guys online or on social media or wherever it might be, where can everyone find you guys?
Just type in Columbus Clippers or clippersbaseball.com and go to our website and maybe buy a hat like you did, or
Yeah.
if you're coming to town, come see us. There's lots of ways to do it. So these young people today, you guys figure out how really to do this. Some of us old guys, we're a little more challenged than you guys.
Again, Ken, team president, GM for the Columbus Clippers. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. I truly appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for having me. Good luck.